Hey everyone, how are you all going? It's been a little while since I've done a try a chapter challenge. I think the first one and last one I did was, I can't remember when, I think it's been like a good year or so. The first one I did was a fantasy, like try a chapter fantasy edition, and I read a whole bunch of fantasy books. This one we're going to pivot more towards thrillers because I feel like I need a bit of a thriller. This is going to be in preparation for a thriller reading vlog I will be doing in May, so keep an eye out for that. And also a reading vlog that I had planned where I was in the middle of some books that I needed to read. It kind of fell through. It did not work out like I thought it was going to. I'm doing this video because I really needed some content, and it's something easy to do. It's still somewhat fun for me and hopefully fun for you to watch. So in saying that, I will take you back a few days when I read the first chapter of the first book. The first book for the Try a Chapter Thriller Edition, Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. It's my last book from her. I'm sad. It's my last book. I have been savoring this book because I genuinely really love this author's books. They're very dark, they're very gritty, and I just love it a lot. So, oh god, it's very cloudy today, so it's like a little dark to see. So it follows Libby Day. She was just 7 years old when her evidence put her 15-year-old brother behind bars. She has been struggling ever since that time. Now she's an adult. There is this group that have contacted her, and this group is convinced that her brother did not massacre her whole family. The evidence is going to be a little bit harder to find. Apparently Ben was a bit of a misfit in their small town, and Libby is asking questions that she never would have asked before. There's secrets at the family, and everyone has a secret. So everyone had something to hide the day of the massacre. Being 24 years later, she's now an adult, and her, along with this group, I'm assuming, are going to find out who massacred the Day family. So I'll read the first chapter of this and then come back to you with an update. Okay, first chapter done in Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, and it was around 20 pages, so it's not too bad. And one thing I have seen is that it looks like it's going to be split up into now, which is present day, and also it's called Patty Day, and I'm assuming we're going to see the events that lead up to the massacre that has happened. So the next chapter is going to be January 2nd, 1985, and January 3rd was when the massacre happened. So like I said, I'm wondering if we actually get to see the events that lead up to the massacre. First chapter, pretty much is setting up for the plot, and Libby does not have a lot of money. She's in her 30s now. She needs to figure out what she wants to do with her life. She is severely depressed, and it does mention suicide in here as well. Like, she's very, very depressed in a very, very dark place, and she tries not to, but she does have memories of her family, like obviously before the massacre, and just some of the good memories I'm assuming that she has had, and she calls those memories dark places, or dark place. When she was young, she had all of these donations from people who felt sorry for her. They gave her money, and when she came of age at age 18, she had access to this money, which would have or should have lasted throughout her life. I'm assuming if she had taken more care of her money. She has a financial advisor, or like a manager type of type of person. He's pretty much saying, like, you need to get a job, you don't have a lot of money, you have like $900 left and it is not going to cut it. And she's struggling, she doesn't want to, with her severe depression, she just does not want to find work. She doesn't think she can handle it. She has a lot of hatred just with how people treat her and how they look at her. And then after her meeting with Jim Jeffries, who was her accountant, so he gives her letters. She used to have so many letters. Now that there are more murder cases happening in the world, people are kind of losing interest in her. And she has some letters. So out of the 3 letters that she was given in this chapter, she's only read 1, 2 of them are unread, and the letter is pretty much someone asking for her to do an appearance and she will be paid for it. It's not as much as she would have liked, but it's still an appearance that will pay her nonetheless. And she had a meeting with this person and he was saying to her of what he kind of does with this group, and this group is pretty much like a true crime club kind of thing. A lot of collectors are going to be there. He said to her, if you have anything of value, anything of your childhood, anything of your mother, especially her mother, because the last sentence of chapter 1 was, people always they always wanted to know what kinds of woman gets slaughtered by her own son. So anything of value that people have a fascination with, bring it along, because you'll get a lot of money that way and we can sell it for a really good price. It goes to show as well how quickly news comes and goes, and obviously there's going to be people that don't think that Ben was the one that did the massacre. Those people have pretty much hunted down, or I don't want to say stalked, but they pretty much came up to Libby's doorstep and pretty much abused her in some ways and said, you did the wrong thing. The book said that it's mainly women that really kind of have really taken an interest in Ben and have said to Libby, you're wrong, and all this kind of stuff. And like I said, they're like abusive to her, both physically and verbally. And that's pretty much the first chapter. Book number 2 is Ripper by Shelley Carr, I believe. Oh, Shelley Burr, not Shelley Carr. It is a book by an Australian author. Gemma Gilroy knows her once charming town is now remembered for one reason, and one reason only. That 3 innocent people died, that the last stop on the Rainier Ripper's trail of death 17 years ago was her innocuous little tea shop. She knows that some of her neighbours are desperate enough to welcome a dark tourism company keen to cash in on Rainier's reputation as the murder town. When the tour operator is killed by a Ripper copycat on Gemma's doorstep, the unease that has lurked quietly in the original killer's wake turns to a foreboding, and she's drawn into the investigation. So is a prisoner named Lane Holland. Gemma knows her town. She knows her people. Doesn't she? I got recommended this by someone from a bookshop that I went to, and it just really sounded really interesting to me, this whole idea of dark tourism and this little town that is known for murders. And when a murder has happened, you do often hear if there is some sort of weird thing that has happened, or if there is some sort of murder that has happened, people will become obsessed with that thing. And it's so true. I mean, people are obsessed with the weird, the supernatural, the dark, the murderous. Like we are a society that loves morbid shit. I'm very curious to see how I'm going to like this. I believe this author has written another book called Wake. Like, you often hear that small town thrillers, like everyone is always hiding a secret, aren't they, in small town thrillers. So I'm going to read this. I actually had a quick look, and there's a prologue. So the book comes with a prologue. And I don't know if I should consider a prologue a first chapter, because a prologue is not the first chapter. Like, it's not chapter 1. Whereas there is chapter 1. There is one. Looks like it has a multimedia formatting, like that is the tour company's advertisement. So I'm going to read the prologue, and chapter 1 I will come back to you with an update about whether or not I like it and my initial thoughts. Just finished reading the first chapter of Ripper, well, the prologue and the first chapter of Ripper. So the prologue is pretty much we are seeing 19-year-old Gemma, who has pretty much taken over a tea shop after her grandmother was very, very sick, and she has taken over the tea shop that was her grandmother's. A guy knocks on the door and she's like, I can't like go home because there's already been like a murder or two that has already happened. So she's like very wary. She doesn't want to let anyone in, and she calls the cops. The cops come, says, hey, like you got like open up right now. She lets the cop and this fella that's knocking on the door, and the fella that was knocking on the door is actually the murder victim, one of the victims, and I don't blame her for not opening up the door. If there were people dropping dead, I would not be opening up the door in case that person at the door was the one doing the killing, you know. I don't blame her for not opening the door. The murder victim, the last stop for this trial tour, or yeah, the Trial of Death tour. He was the last victim of this serial killer. Now, 17 years in the future, there's no timeline, there's like no year, there's no year dated, so I have to go on the back here when it says 17 years ago. So now Gemma is in her 30s. The first chapter is pretty much this tour company guy from Melbourne and Sydney. I think he has 2 operations in Melbourne and Sydney, I believe. And it's pretty much him making a case for this tour company to do a tour in the small town of Rainier. Rainier was, before the murders happened, quite a popular spot for travelers to come into this town, have a relaxing time, rest, relax, have lunch, stop at the tea shop, do some light little shopping. It was a really nice little place for people to do that between Melbourne and Sydney or vice versa. And then the murders started happening and people were not stopping by, so the town really needs some money. Obviously people are going to be against it, people are going to be for it, and it's pretty much this tour company guy making his case for why this tour company should make a tour in Rainier about the murder victims, about this murder that has happened in the small town. And a lot of people, like I said, people are not happy about it. They don't want their lives, especially the victims' families, like they don't want their lives to be splattered around. And obviously some people are happy about it because it means more money for them and like at least a bit more of a booming business than what they had before the murders happened. Of course, the people that don't want it to happen, almost in a way like, how dare someone who hasn't lived through it tell them the life story or tell them the story of these murders that have happened, because these victims in this town, they know what happened, whereas the person doing the tour company only knows bits and pieces. There was this person that was really nitpicking at this tour guy, and this tour company guy, his name is Lachlan. Lachlan is his name. Like, he wants to be respectful, but yet he also wants this tour to happen. Like, the tour is going to happen no matter what. He just wants this town's permission, because if he doesn't get this town's permission, if the people in this town aren't happy with how this tour is going to be presented, then they're going to be rioting. They're going to be dragging the reputation of this tour company through the mud. So he's really trying to make his case, and he really is trying to be respectful as possible and try to get it at least somewhat accurate enough so that tourists can really live the experience of the victims. Very, very interesting. Like, that's pretty much the first chapter, but the murders that have happened were quite interesting. They were quite something. I don't want to spoil what the murders were like, but they were something, alright. And it wasn't a bad chapter. Like, it was 22 pages, but I've just been reading so slow because I'm just not feeling well today, but 22 pages, and that was with the prologue and chapter 1 included. So yeah, not a bad start. So took a bit of a break, I took my dog for a walk, I had a shower, I'm feeling much better now. Third book for this triad chapter thriller edition is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. From what I know, this book seems to be a little bit mismarketed, I believe. Like, I think people were expecting a thriller, but really I think it's a romance. A killer haunts a small southern town and two outcasts, the preacher's daughter and the boy from the wrong side of the tracks, holds the key to uncovering the truth. For fans of verity and a flicker in the dark, Midnight is the Darkest Hour is a twisted tale of murder, obsessive love, and the beastly urges that lie dormant within us all, even the God-fearing folk of Bottom Springs, Louisiana. And her small hometown librarian Ruth Cornier has always felt like an outsider, even as her beloved father rains fire and brimstone warnings from the pulpit at Holy Fire Baptist. Unfortunately for Ruth, the only things that townspeople fear more than God and the devil are the myths that haunt the area, like the story of the Low Man, a vampiric figure said to steal into sinners' bedrooms and kill them on moonless nights. When a skull is found deep in the swamp next to mysterious carved symbols, Bottom Springs is thrown into an uproar, and Ruth realizes only she and Everett, an old friend with a dark past, have the power to comb the town's secret underbelly in search of the true evil. From what I know of Ashley Winstead, I think she writes a lot of dark thrillers, a lot of dark mystery thrillers, so this is my first book of Ashley Winstead's. I know a lot of people do not like this book. I don't know where I'm going to fall with it, because my first Ashley Winstead, like I just said, I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. I hope I do. I've heard and I'm seeing as well that this book mentions Twilight quite a bit. Don't know what to make of that. I used to read Twilight and I have read Twilight in the past. What I feel about it now? I don't know how I feel about it now. I feel quite mixed, to be honest. With that being said, dust jacket off. It's time to read the first chapter. I will be back when I have finished the first chapter and I will give you an update. Okay, so that was a quick 8 pages of this book, and it left on a bit of a cliffhanger that makes me think, huh? Like, what? From what it seems like it follows 2 timelines. It follows the now timeline, which is first of all, it's the first chapter. We get the now timeline, which I believe seems to be the murder investigation, the homicide investigation, where they have pulled up a skeleton, a skull from the swamp. It seems like the main character is looking a little guilty. I don't know, I think the main character has been through a lot, and I think her priest of a father has a lot to do with it. And then we also have, is it the June timeline? I think it's, yeah, June, 17 years old. I thought I said 17 years ago. So we have, obviously, Ruth when she is 17 years old, and I think this is when we see her love of Twilight come into play, because I kind of read it through a little bit. Short chapters, by the way, which is good in a thriller. Not necessary, but it's good because especially when the end of a chapter leaves on a bit of a cliffhanger with like a eye-catching sentence that makes you think, what? And keeps you turning the pages. So at 17 years old, I think is where we're going to get the most Twilight stuff. I don't really have many thoughts to say other than what, and I want to keep reading. It kind of seems like I said, it seems like the main character and someone else is responsible for this person's death in the swamp, for the skull that was like brought up from the swamps, but I could be completely wrong. I'm not a big religious person, but just seeing people's obsession, just having religion in any kind of fictional book I'm going to like. So having this religious obsession, I guess you could say, or this religious fear in a book like this, I think I'm going to really like. I think that's all I had to say for this one. I'm intrigued, shall I say. So the last book is An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I've had this book since it came out, which was in 2018. So I can't do the math now in my head, but a while. It's been a while. Seeking women ages 18 to 32 to participate in a study on ethics and morality. Generous compensation, anonymity guaranteed. When Jessica Farris signs up for a psychology study conducted by the mysterious Dr. Shields, she thinks all she'll have to do is answer a few questions, collect her money, and leave. But as the questions grow more and more intense and invasive, and the sessions become outings where Jess is told what to wear and how to act, she begins to feel as though Dr. Shields may know what she's thinking and what she's hiding. As Jess's paranoia grows, it becomes clear that she can no longer trust what is real in her life and what is one of Dr. Shields' manipulative experiments. Caught in a web of deceit and jealousy, Jess quickly learns that some obsessions can be deadly. You know the drill. It's time for me to read this chapter. I will be back in a minute. It did not take me a minute to read the chapter like I knew it wasn't going to. Anonymous girl. Yeah. So all we're doing is pretty much following, oh my gosh, who was the main character's name? You know, I've already forgotten. Jessica. Her name is Jessica. So we follow Jessica. She's a makeup artist. She's living in New York. She finds out about this questionnaire from her client, and she is going to take the questionnaire. Pretty much the first chapter, that's what it entailed. It seems like she has some family issues from what I can gather. Yeah, not really telling me much other than just kind of like setting up the plot. I don't know what else to say because that's pretty much all there is. It seems to be nice short chapters as well. So I will catch up with you tomorrow when I'm feeling a bit better because I'm not really feeling that good today. And I will tell you which books I like the most and which ones I will be reading for a thriller reading vlog. So I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it is the next day now. I'm feeling much better than I was yesterday afternoon and into the evening, so that's good. The books I decided to go for were these three. So we got Midnight is the Darkest Hour, Ripper, and Dark Place. I decided to go for those three instead of two, just because these ones I have a bit more interest in. Reasons being, Midnight is the Darkest Hour. Is it really as bad as people think it is, or as people say it is? Ripper, I'm just very curious to see who was doing these new killings and how is this tourism going to operate in this small town, and how are the locals going to adapt to it, and what are the tourists going to act towards the locals or the victims' families. And Dark Places, because it's about time that I finish reading Gillian Flynn's books, and it's a farewell to Gillian Flynn books. I don't know when another Gillian Flynn book is going to come out. Who knows, because it's been quite a while. My last book from this author, I'm just very curious to see what this group of people that think Ben is his name. I'm just curious to see what this group of people that think Ben is innocent, I want to see what their evidence is. And I want to see about the secret. What were the family hiding on the day of the massacre? Those are the books. You will see a reading vlog with these books next month in May sometime, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in another video. Bye for now.